Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Resistor Network In Depth, where I deep dive on a piece of technology that fascinates me. Today we're going to be taking a look at chiptunes, one of my oldest tech passions. I've been listening to chiptunes since before I even knew how to write computer programs. If you don't know what a chiptune is, you're actually listening to one right now. This is a 32-channel extended module chiptune. And if you don't know what that is, you'll have some idea by the end of this video. I'm surrounded by chiptune memorabilia here. I've got vinyl records and CDs and DAT tapes and 7-inch vinyl, all kinds of different things. And this is to show support for the artists who create this great music. I'll have more to say about this after the deep dive. And with the introductions out of the way, let's get started. A chiptune is a nickname for music synthesized by a computer, often characterized by simple tones such as square and triangle waves for melody and white noise for drums. This is a pretty big generalization though. The term chiptune is overloaded and can apply to very simple bleep-blop music all the way to complex 32-channel XM modules, and beyond to modern digital audio workstation-produced music in the style of these older formats. One common attribute of chiptunes is that they are usually a sequence of instructions to an audio synthesis engine for when to turn on and off certain instruments, how loud to play them, and what frequency to play them at. The instructions would be input to the synthesizer at a fixed rate, though some instructions might speed up or slow down the rate of playback to change the tempo. These synthesizers could be hardware accelerated and fixed function like they were in the 70s and 80s, or rendered in software like they commonly are today. It is hard to define what a chiptune is, but you know it when you hear it. Chiptunes started out as simple instructions to fixed function sound chips, such as this Atari Pokey from many Atari products of the 1980s. These audio synthesizers could produce a fixed set of waveforms, usually with limited to no polyphony. Polyphony is the ability to play multiple notes of the same instrument at the same time, and is required to produce chords. A simple example of a primitive sound chip is the PC speaker, commonly found in IBM-compatible personal computers. The music you are listening to right now was produced on a Commodore 64 Sound Interface Device, or SID chip. These primitive audio generators often support simple waveforms such as sine and square wave. The more sophisticated of these chips supported an attack, decay, sustain, release, or ADSR envelope to emulate the response of a real instrument. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, computers were rapidly evolving. Moore's law was in full effect and computer processing power was increasing at an incredible rate. This allowed musicians and artists to accomplish more than they had ever imagined before. The raw computing power enabled primitive visual effects such as ray tracing of low-polygon 3D scenes and rendering multi-channel music in real time. This led to the introduction of software-rendered chiptune tracking tools. One popular example is Fast Tracker, developed by the demo scene group Triton. This team of talented programmers and artists later went on to form the successful game development company Starbreeze Studios. In later years, more modern and open-source tools became popular, such as Milky Tracker or OpenMPT. A module tracker provides an easy way to manage instrument samples and build the patterns to provide to the synthesizer, with effects, panning, speed, and more. They commonly have a grid as a core part of their user interface. To illustrate this, I am going to play a tune from one of my favorite artists, Lizard King, whose music is currently playing in the background. The next track is called short01.mod. I will toggle some of the channels on and off to show how multi-channel makes music come to life. If we slow it way down, it becomes more obvious that each row in the pattern data changes the state of the synth and the music that we hear. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. The scene is dead. I have observed a decline in the amount of available chiptune content in recent years. My favorite channel, Reclusive Lemming, that got me through countless assignments and work projects, stopped posting years ago. More recently, K. Relez was considering closing down his channel because he felt like there wasn't enough support from the community. I'm not really sure. But they have some really great content, great music, and great compilations that I really enjoy. I feel that gone are the days of lugging your CRT to a LAN party to show off the latest demo that pushes your computer hardware to the absolute limit. Computers these days are just so powerful. Even the smartphone in your pocket can run OpenGL ES applications, which allows for beautiful hardware-accelerated 2D and 3D games that use hundreds of megabytes of RAM. Producing a great soundtrack barely registers on the available system resources. Gone are the days of pushing the Commodore 64 to the limit, with 64K of RAM and chasing the scanline while producing beautiful music. People do still release content for these old platforms, but I feel that the interest is starting to subside. In my day-to-day work, I get to squeeze every drop of performance out of modern microcontrollers that rival the performance of hardware from the 90s. I get to do this sort of work in my day-to-day life with practical applications, but less colorful graphics and upbeat music. I have one of those projects here, actually. This is a PCB that I designed for an e-bike that I was building last year, and this has an STM32 microcontroller on it with 96 kilobytes of RAM and 512K of flash memory. This is designed to run a small screen on the handlebars and accept input from the user, turn the bike on and off. It has a small speaker to play back little notification sounds and beep when there is some kind of fault that the user should be looking at. And when I first built this board, I thought it'd be really fun to write a small demo to play back chiptunes using a library called MicMod. MicMod is a small library that's quite portable and normally runs on a desktop-type computer, but in this case I was able to make it small enough to run on the very small memory footprint of this device here. And I'll give you a quick demo of that now. So all I have to do is connect the speaker to the speaker connection, and then I connect a 9-volt battery to the battery connection. The reason why it takes a 9-volt battery is that this board is actually designed to run up to 60 volts off of the main pack in an e-bike, so it's a pretty high voltage input. So we connect that here, and then the music will start to play. And you can hear it there. And then I put it in this small box to make the speaker resonate a little better. Quite a cool little project though. This project really has no practical purpose. It's just fun, and I actually did get to send a patch upstream to the MicMod maintainer. I found that there was a small bug in the way that they allocate buffers for the left and right channels, and if you configure the library in mono mode, it still allocates 2 buffers and wastes a whole bunch of RAM. And that was the only way I was able to get it to run on the small memory footprint of this chip. This is the programmer that you use to load code onto the STM32. The chiptunes are actually stored in the flash memory of the chip. It has 512K, so it can actually hold quite a few chiptunes, but it only has enough RAM to buffer one at a time. But that's not too bad because you don't really want to play more than one at a time anyway. It's really impressive that I'm able to play back chiptunes on a really small chip like this. You can think that this is almost a single chip computer. You know, you think of things like a Raspberry Pi where it's like a single board and it has a whole bunch of peripherals attached to it for USB and sound. This is just a single chip. The audio is actually just clocked out of a regular pin using PWM, which is really, really simple, but really, really effective. And it kind of lets you know why these chiptunes exist in the first place. They're designed for these really small systems. Things like in the 1980s where you only had 64K of RAM total in a computer that took up your entire desk. This is like the same thing, but it fits in the palm of my hand. So I mentioned earlier that it's important to support these artists, and I'm surrounded with this memorabilia that does. I have the album from Anders Jensen, who works with the 8-Bit Guy. I've actually got the 8-Bit Guy CD that he signed, which is really cool, and he gave a note. And I have a couple of albums from Dubmood here with Data Airlines, and this one's really interesting. It's actually cut in the shape of a floppy disk, even down to the, the sticker on the center of the vinyl that actually looks like a floppy drive spindle. And then this little 7-inch vinyl, which is really cool. And this is really unique stuff. It's one of a kind. These are hard to find, and they're usually made in a really limited run, so they're definitely collector's type items. And I think it's important that we buy these things to support the artists and show them that we enjoy their music so that they continue to make more. So that's all I have for you today on Chiptunes, and I really hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Resistor Network in depth. If you have suggestions or ideas about the format, please leave them below. I'll be very happy to read them and maybe tweak it for the second episode. Who knows when that will be, but it's really fun to put these things together and do all the editing and find the cool pictures, and I really enjoyed putting this together, and I hope you enjoy it too. If you want to hear more from me, feel free to subscribe. I make videos like this pretty rarely, maybe once a month or so, and so I probably won't spam your feed, and you get to hear more interesting techie content. So that's all I've got for now, and with that, I will see you next time.